Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the 1991 Upper Deck football images. To me, these are the best images that they had in the 1991 Upper Deck football set. And Upper Deck had a long way to go to reach this particular set. Because when they came out in 1989, they just kind of put together a set that was done in a higher quality way, but not with the higher quality designs. So it was just kind of a forgettable set. 1990, they were still able to kind of milk the whole point of not making a great set, because in baseball, everything was still asleep, and so their competition just wasn't really giving them anything to compete with. In hockey, they tried to jump the gun and beat everybody to the punch, but everybody else had the same idea, and so when they got there, they were making better quality cards in terms of the design and the images. But still, they weren't at the level that they would eventually need to be, because in 1991, they wanted to hit all four sports. They wanted to introduce themselves to the entire card market, and their idea was to take over the card market. And for those of us in football and in basketball, we saw them as the rich kids who were coming in with all the expensive toys and trying to get past us in terms of just spending more money and getting more results out of it. And the reason that we thought of it that way was because that's really the way that it was. So in 1991, while in baseball they could continue to make a card set where the images weren't all that strong, a few of them were, but for the most part they weren't. When they jumped into the football market and the basketball market, they were going to have to bring it. Because in 1990, both football and basketball showed amazing designs and amazing photographs that were used in multiple sets, and so for Upper Deck, they were going to have to compete with that, and the only way that they could get people to spend more money to buy their expensive cards was to have cards that looked like they were worth it. And while in football the design wasn't all that much better than in baseball, it was better. In basketball, they would at least use a design that was good, but they needed to earn it with the pictures. They needed to make sure that these card sets looked good throughout, because you needed to keep people stimulated. You needed to make sure that every time somebody opened a pack, they were excited about the cards that were inside. And image-wise, they pulled that off with football. Now, football does have an unusual advantage, which is that it is an unusually photogenic sport. It's like somebody who was a photographer sat down and designed a perfect sport for photographers, and then added some rules, and people went out there and played the game. Because everything about the game of football is really photogenic. It is. You have great lighting, you have great colors, you have great backdrops, you have a great green field, you have great action, just through and through. Everything about the game is perfect for photographers. And the fact that you rarely got card sets that took advantage of that was kind of weird. Pro Set, and to a lesser extent Score, had already in 1990 shown that they were starting to pick it up. So Upper Deck needed to nail it, and they absolutely did, because look, here are a couple of general cards from the set. These are up above average, but above average still means kind of middle of the road. This is just the way that the whole card set looked. It all looked this way. So that meant that when they really succeeded with the cards, these cards could be really, really fun, really impressive. And I'm going to start with the shoulder pad cards. With these two cards, I like the John Taylor card better. I think that the card reads a little bit better than the Aikman card. The Aikman card, to me, it's kind of like a perfect card, and it feels almost staged in a way. It doesn't look staged, it doesn't seem staged, but it has kind of a staged quality. Like if you were to design a perfect card, this is what it would be like. The fact that his shoulder pad has emerged is the fact that you can tell that he is engaged in the play. He just avoided a sack. He's carrying through with the play, so it's really cool. Great combination. The John Taylor card has more energy. I like the way that the whole card feels. In fact, it's ironic that the shoulder pad detracts from that and disrupts it, but at the same time, it's what stands out about the card. It's like Cindy Crawford's mole. It's the flaw, and the flaw is what catches your eye and pulls you in and makes the card memorable. So ironically, I think that the John Taylor card is better because of the shoulder pad, even though the card image isn't as good. It's just a lot more memorable. Regardless, I like the shoulder pads emerging from time to time because it really does help to feel the physicality of the game. Next, I'm going with Howie Long, and the Howie Long card is to me, this is like the perfect editor's choice. This card, theoretically, mathematically, it shouldn't work. This is the wrong way to do a card. You got two guys sitting on a bench, great. But where are their heads? Up by the top. If Howie Long didn't already have a flat top, his hair would disappear off the card. Why are their heads up at the top of the card? When you look at the card, the thing that pulls you in is their arms and the field. That is not the way it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to make cards this way. But the thing is, that's exactly what the card needed to be. This is a case where a photographer took a shot, great, but the editor went through and saw the picture inside of the shot and captured the picture, what really works. For me, this card means a lot because I'm a good photographer. I'm not a great photographer, but I'm a good photographer, and I can usually see the shot. But I don't know how to see the shot through the camera lens. So I have to take a whole bunch of shots. Later on, I get to go down and look at all the images and find the image. The image I knew was there, and I could look and see, and okay, good. And even better, when I find the image I didn't even know was there. But that's what a good editor does. A good editor knows how to see the image that may or may not have even been seen by the photographer. And this is a perfect case where this shot is not the shot that anybody should have used. And yet it was the shot that you had to use, and the editor figured that out. Great shot. But you can also manufacture a shot by doing everything perfectly, and Upper Deck at this time liked to do a 3-image array of a player in various stages of movement. And for this set, they went with Joe Montana. In fact, in this set, they only went with Joe Montana. And it was perfect because why would you do any more? This is perfect. It's so perfect that this is the card that they used on the box. And I'm not just talking about on the top of the box. On the sides, they used the same card. This was the only card they needed to show off their set. So it was. And for these 3-phase images, this is the top of all of these that Upper Deck did. I love the way that it comes through. It's great. It is staged, but the fact they used the black background behind the black backdrop and the richness of the colors, it's perfectly crafted. But I certainly do like to exist in the real world. And what a great card Matt Millen has provided us with, inadvertently, by providing us with, this is a very static shot. In fact, that's the whole point. It is incredibly static. And yet this is one of the most action-packed, not action-filled, but action-packed cards because you just feel the whole game that's happened. This is a case where if you're looking at this card and you're wondering who won, you don't get it. This is one of those cases of, I don't care who won, I'm just glad it's over. To me, this is like running, the first time I ran a marathon, where you get to the end of the marathon, you're just like, good, it's done. It's done, right? It is done. Please tell me I don't have to do anymore. That's what this is like. It's really a wonderful shot because, boy, do you feel the day that he had. And this may explain the tendency that he had in his later career to really whiff it on first-round draft picks. Regardless, every time I look at this card, the whole weight of the sport, there are rarely cases where you get to see these kinds of cards, and every time you do, they're just wonderful. They're not necessarily wonderful for the guy in the picture, but they're wonderful for the rest of us because we get to sit around on our couch and love watching the game because we don't have to go through it ourselves. We get to emotionally pretend that we totally know what he went through, and there's the chance we might not. But regardless, great Matt Millen card. But for a card that I would love to put at number 1, I can't, I'm not, but I'd love to, is the Bo Jackson card. This card comes with a bit of context. It's a great image. It really is. It's a really bold shot of Bo Jackson. But for those of us who were there during his career and got to enjoy watching his career, there's something about his career that's really quite tragic, which is that he was the biggest guy on the planet, the biggest star on the planet, and Michael Jordan was not until Bo Jackson retired. And then Michael Jordan got to be the biggest star on the planet. Bo was the guy who carried us in these early years of fandom, especially in the card market, where we were watching the card market rise to the level of Bo Jackson. And we were excited about it. We couldn't wait. And then his career ended just before the card industry got there. We didn't get the Upper Deck Hero set. We didn't get the Fleer set all about him. We didn't get any of those. All those came just afterwards. And it really kills me because when you look back through his career, the cards that were made weren't all that good. I mean, they were good cards, but none of them carried the superhuman quality of what we totally saw on the field, which we actually did see on the field. There are only two cards that really pull through. One's the football baseball card. The other one's this one. This is his football card. This is the card that comes through and actually looks the way that a Bo Jackson card should look. And I put this on the list in part because it's a good looking card, but in part because this is the great Bo Jackson card. So, for what it's worth, there we have it. But as great as that is, we got to moving back into the world of action, or really dynamic action. And this is a two-parter. I'm starting off with Steve Tasker because I really love this card and I want it on the list. It does not belong on the list, but it's a great card and it does have a relationship with the card that does belong here. So in the case of the Tasker, part of what I like is the crispness. You really do feel like this is football in Buffalo. I also love the fact that here we have Steve Tasker, who is one of the players who's supposed to have already been in the Hall of Fame if the Hall of Fame took seriously who should be in the Hall of Fame, but he's the invisible guy for the Hall of Fame. And he kind of blends into the rest of the card, which to me, that's kind of ironic. Fortunately, on the back, there's a good shot of him, but on the front, I just like the way that the card carries. But if you want a really great Buffalo Bills card, you go with James Lofton. This card really is amazing. And ironically, it's very unusual for Lofton because James Lofton was known for his speed. So you always see him running, catching, jumping. You see him doing something athletic. In this case, you don't see any of it. Again, the editor outsmarted everybody else and found the right shot, the perfect shot. Here, you don't need to know that he's a fast guy because you know he's successful. He's the center of the celebration. But what makes the card so memorable is this is a glorious, glorious celebration of all things Buffalo Bills. If this was Neil Anderson, I'd put this as one of the best Bears cards of all time. It's not. It's James Lofton, thankfully during his Buffalo Bills years. And it's just, I get excited looking at this. I get excited for Buffalo Bills fans. That's how I am with this card. I love the way that it comes across. It's just a fantastic card. But I think it's time to get back to action and let's get airborne again, like with Steve Tasker. But in this case, I want to go with the running backs. And the first one I'm going with is Christian Okoye. Again, this card doesn't quite fit on this list, but it's a great segue. Because here, this is a case where you got to understand a little bit about Christian Okoye to appreciate this. Bo Jackson was known as the fastest fullback in the sport. He was a guy who's faster than everybody else. Yes, even Deion Sanders, that overrated, I'll leave it at that. And even though he was the fastest guy, he was also one of the biggest guys on the field, which meant that if anybody was dumb enough to stand in front of him while he was moving, Bo was winning. But Christian Okoye was that in reverse. He was the biggest guy on the field, and he was one of the fastest guys on the field. I mean, he could keep up with the defensive backs, or more correctly, the defensive backs could barely keep up with Christian Okoye, and yet Okoye was the size of a defensive lineman. The guy was huge. It was a great combination, and had he developed his skills as a running back, he truly would have been unstoppable. He would have made the bus seem second rate. When I look at this card and I see him flying through the air, I know, one, the guy's moving. I mean, there's a reason he's in the air. And two, if there is anybody in front of him, they're not going to be in front of him for long. I love the way it comes through because I understand the context. I know what's going on in the shot. But like I said, it's not a great shot like the Robert Del Pino card. This is one of the great running backs in the air shots. Look how high he is. I mean, he is way up in the air. And ironically, there's nobody that he's coming in contact with, and you kind of hope so because look how high he is. Look how far down he's got to go. I really hope there's someone there to help him in that landing. The fact that he's so high up, you really it carries this card, and it carries you as an audience member in looking at it. I just love, love, love the way this card comes across. But for me, there is no question as to what the best card image-wise in this card set is, and that's Rod Woodson. Now, we have a tendency here in this country to drape flags behind everything to celebrate being American and how great we are as American. Even though we have a lot of evidence to call that into question, we still got to keep reminding ourselves how great we are, and so we do it all the time. And yet with this card, that's not what I feel at all. To me, this feels natural. Part of the reason is because the flag's in the background, there's not a lot of it, and it's out of focus. And then you have Rod Woodson in front, and Rod is the whole point of the card. And he is literally the whole point of the card. It is the Pro Bowl, so he's not in his Pittsburgh Steelers jersey, which is part of what makes it work, because his jersey fits with the flag. And on top of that, those big shoulder pads mean that his name, everything that comes across, works with the flag, so that it's not like he's a part of the flag or the flag's a part of him. But when you look at the card, it all works together as a combination, where this is that perfect moment where a photographer takes a picture, goes, this is going to look great, and then looks at it later on and goes, that was better than I could ever have imagined. That's what's great about this card. I look at it, and every time I look at it, I can't believe that everything worked together so perfectly. I really love this card. So obviously Upper Deck was doing a really good job getting images for football. It's such a relief because baseball really was a pretty boring set, but with football, they were finally starting to, image-wise, pull it off. I am going to look at basketball in my next video and see where they were able to really take advantage of the photo ops in basketball, where in that sport, it's a lot harder to make them work right, but if you can get them to work right, oh, you have some celestial shots. Really, they can enter into a whole nother range. So I'm going to be looking at that separately, but this is what, to me, these are the cards in 1991 Upper Deck football that get you excited. So comment below on any takes that you have about this. Check out the other reviews I've been doing, etc. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and thank you very much for watching.